Hey guys, this is Field Marshal here at the Blaster Factory, and today is scope painting day. Okay guys, before we get started, I'm going to give you just a quick history on where these scopes come from. Interesting fact, these scopes actually come out of periscopes from World War II that went into our Sherman tanks. These are surplus periscopes, and the scope was located inside here. For today's project, going to need some painter's tape, flat black spray paint, and a textured paint of your choice.
Every day I trick the devil to cross the line.
Next thing, I'm going to mask off the brass portions. The center portions of the M19 and the M38 have a little texture on the casting and smoother on the ends. So what I do, first thing is I'm going to mask off the ends just like this. That way when we spray the center section with our texture paint, it won't get on our brass parts. Let me point out something about the M19 that's really cool too. You're going to see these on a lot of the Han Solo DL44 blasters. There's two versions of it. This is a rare one that has the solid light port hole, but you more often see the one with the cut light port hole. First thing's the texture paint. I'm going to do a couple light coats. Just spritz that on there. Okay guys, it's had a little drying time. Looks pretty good. I got some texture. Now it's time to peel all the tape off. Okay, texture paint dried. Next thing, we're going to hit it with flat black spray paint. But first, we want to make sure our little scope retaining rings are already screwed in, because if you paint the threads without that in there, this won't screw in. So we make sure that's in on this side and this side, but we do not put the lens in yet. Okay, we're ready for some flat black spray paint.
You can tell me you can handle the truth. That's how you like it, but you just don't get it.
Okay, we've got everything painted, got the base coats on it. Now we need to do some details, okay? And we've got the M38 and we've got the M19s. Now, real quick, I was going to go over with the M38s and the M19s. M38s are a little different than the M19s. They don't have the light port. And I actually did the replica that I cast off of this one here with the number 4. It's one of the most famous numbers that's seen on the E11s. And from that, cast that, and I even did little replica screws here for it too, which are real important. I see a lot of people with their E11s and things, or even on their Hoth blasters, using the wrong screws, holding the, you know, go through the trouble of getting a replica made and put, you know, hardware screws in it. Looks really dumb. Now the M19, two versions of it. It's very interesting. A lot of people don't realize this, but one has a cut port and the other one doesn't. And these are light ports, and they have little lenses in them, or little lights when they're in the periscope. And I make both versions. I make one that's cut and one that's not. The non-cut version, you see it on the Han Bespin. It's probably the most famous place. Rest of them are mostly the cut port, like this one. Okay, first things first. We need to do something about, you know, getting our engraving to show up like they do on these. I think they've probably done it with paint on the real one and rubbed it off, but it's a lot easier if you just use a crayon or even shoe polish for that matter. But it's real easy. Just fill it in. Now that we've got it to this point, I use a piece of Scotch-Brite to knock the excess off. Plus, using this is also going to scuff up this brass ring and give it kind of a weathered look, because you can tell on some of these they look pretty worn down. I'm probably not going to do this one quite this beat up, but we are going to do a few little accents. See how it starts showing up there? There we go. Okay, now we need to take our rings out, because if you remember right, we painted these with them in, and they're a little bit stuck. So let's back that out. And I have these really nifty snap-on internal pliers that I really like for this. I do the same thing for the M38 and for the M19. Lens for the small side here is a little bit different. The M38 is a little bigger, but it works the same way. I'll pick it up here. Just drop that in there. Replace. And don't worry about scarring it up with your fingernail or turning it, because we want a little battle damage on it. Starts making the brass show through. Okay. Now the front, we're gonna put a sticker on it on the inside. I like it on the inside. It makes it look more realistic, but that'll drop in there. Okay. Like a spot here. Okay. Try to center it up. Okay. Okay. Now just take your X-Acto knife and trim off the excess here. Okay, now we'll install this. Take this out. Try to put that in straight. Wipe your fingerprints off of it. And get it pretty straight. Replace the ring here. Put your finger in the center of it while you tighten it down so it doesn't spin. Voila. Now I'm going to knock some of the edges off and expose some of the brass, because you can tell some of these. Now this one's pretty beat up, but I'm going to do the same thing to the replica here. Make it look battle worn. Just use the tip and just use the tip. Knock some of the edges off. Your discretion on this. I always feel like less is better. You get carried away with it. Do it to both sides. Try to hit the parts that would be exposed. You get the idea. Okay, for the next part, I'm going to try to add some accents, where the paint's wearing through. And I see a popular mistake people do that is they think this thing's brass. Well, it is, but the alloy it's made out of is more of a bronze color. So when you're buying some paint, try to buy bronze. It'll look more like the real scope than brass does. But I've got a can here I've been using for a while. And you need to dry brush it, so get some on the brush and a little paper towel and knock some of it off. Do that real gently. Now, I mentioned it earlier about the screws. M38 and M19 mounting screws are different. The M38 has these little cheese head screws, slotted cheese heads, and I custom make those so that they're, identical to what comes out of the real scope mount. And the same thing for the M19. Now the M19, one thing that's weird about it, the front one's thinner than the rear one. And you'll notice that on a lot of the Han Solo DL44 builds that the nuts are actually thicker on the front and back. And before we get out of here, I want to show you one cool factor on the M19 scope and the light port. Now when you get one of my replica kits, you'll also get the little lens, and it pops in the side here, and it can be a little pain in the butt, get crooked in there, but I just use a screwdriver head and I work it in there, get to the bottom. That way looks like the real one. Then also it's a little copper ring, and I think what that was used for is the light bulb. That used to hold the socket or the light bulb in the scope while it was in the periscope. Made one of those out of some little copper wire. And we'll just put that on. I've got a little groove cut around the edge of that port. Guys, thanks for joining me for Scope Build Day. As always, you can find these products on blasterfactory.com. Subscribe to the channel. See you next time.